You think you can teach a dog new tricks, old woman? You're a relic.
Try not to break a hip, old-timer.
Watch and learn, kid.
This ain't no playground.
Who let her in? She is tracking mud across my clean mat. Cora Whitfield kept walking straight to the center of the floor. I came here about my grandson, she said. You owe that boy an explanation. Trent Marlowe turned to his students and smiled the way a man smiles when he already knows he has an audience. That is the kid who cried and ran home to his grandmother, he said. The room laughed on cue. What are you going to do, old woman? Fight me? You will regret this, she said. Calm, even, the kind of calm that should have warned him. Trent's smile slipped. A 62-year-old woman in reading glasses was not supposed to say a thing like that in his gym. He crossed to the register, tore out a fistful of $100 bills, and threw them in her face. The money slapped her cheek and scattered across the mat like dead leaves in a gutter. Cora Whitfield set her purse down on the floor. Slow, careful, the way a person sets down a hymnal before they rise to sing. Her left foot slid back. Her hands came up, open and loose, fingers barely curved. Across the room, Trent's own trainer started shouting for him to stop. Too late. Because what that trainer saw in the old woman's stance was about to unmake everything Trent Marlowe believed about power, about pride, and about the woman he had just humiliated in front of his camera. But to understand that afternoon, you have to go back, all the way back. Barrow Springs sits about 20 minutes south of Charlotte in Colden County, North Carolina. Strip malls with cracked parking lots. A Baptist church with a roof that leaks every March. A community center where the air conditioning died 2 summers ago, and nobody ever came to fix it. This is where Cora Whitfield lives. 62 years old, 5'4", a slight limp in her left knee from an injury that never healed the way the doctors promised. She wears reading glasses on a chain around her neck and keeps her gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. Every Sunday she brings a sweet potato pie to church. Every weekday she walks her grandson to the corner, even though he tells her he is far too old for that now. If you passed her on the street, you would not look twice. That is the thing about Cora Whitfield. Nobody looks twice. Nobody has for 23 years, and that is exactly the way she wants it. But 23 years ago, Cora Whitfield was someone else entirely. They called her the Shadow. 5-time national karate champion, 3-time Pan American gold medalist, a 3rd-degree black belt in Shotokan by the age of 26. American Athlete magazine ran a 2-page feature on her in 1989, and the headline read, "The woman who fights like smoke. You blink and she is gone." She could slip a punch by the width of a breath and put a bigger opponent on the floor before the crowd understood what their eyes had seen. She retired in 2003. No announcement, no farewell match. Her husband, Samuel, died of cancer that spring, and Cora folded her black belt, laid it in a cedar chest at the end of the hall, and closed the lid. She never opened it again. She raised her daughter, Yolanda, on her own. And when Yolanda started driving long-haul trucks to keep the lights on, Cora took over raising the boy. Malik became her whole world. Malik Whitfield, 18, tall and quiet, built like a runner. He found martial arts the way boys do now, through videos on his phone. And of all the channels in the world, the one that lit him up belonged to Trent Marlowe. He watched those clips the way some kids watch superhero movies. Eyes wide, jaw tight, hungry, he begged his grandmother for months. "Just one class, Grandma. Just let me try one." She always changed the subject. She had her reasons. Reasons she never explained to him. She could have taught him herself. She knew that. But a backyard was not what the boy was hungry for. Malik did not want a secret passed down in the dark. He wanted a room full of people and mirrors, a place that would look at him and say he belonged. That was the one thing she could not give him. So she gave him the next best thing. She paid the $300 for the first month at Marlowe Elite Combat Academy, and she drove Malik there herself. She watched him walk through that glass door with his gym bag over his shoulder, back straight, chin up, proud. Then she sat in the car for 20 minutes before she drove home. She did not go inside. She could not. She knew what a gym smelled like. She knew exactly what that world could do to a person. And she had buried the woman who lived in that world a long time ago. For 3 weeks, Malik came home glowing. He shadowboxed in the kitchen. He drilled stances in the backyard until the security light clicked off, and he kept going in the dark. He talked about combinations at dinner, the way other kids talk about video games. Then came a Tuesday, 3:15 in the afternoon. Cora was folding laundry when she heard the front door open. She looked at the clock. Malik's class did not end until 5. He stood in the hallway, gym bag still zipped, his face set like poured concrete. He did not cry. He did not shout. He walked past her, went into his room, and shut the door. Cora set the laundry down. She knocked once. No answer. She opened the door anyway. "What happened?" she asked. "Nothing, Grandma." Malik. "What happened?" A long silence. Then, quiet as a whisper. "He said I do not belong there. Said it in front of everyone. Told me to get my stuff and get out." Cora's hands went still, not shaking. Still. The kind of still that comes before a storm crosses open water. Did he say why? He did not have to. "You know why, Grandma?" She did know. She had always known. It was the very reason she had not wanted him walking through that door in the first place. She sat on the edge of his bed and said nothing for a long while. Then she stood, went to the hall closet, and took down her purse. "Where are you going?" Malik said, sitting up. "To get your explanation, Grandma. Do not." But Cora Whitfield was already out the door. And across town, in a gym that smelled of leather and ego, Trent Marlowe was about to make the worst mistake of his life. Cora pushed open the glass door of Marlowe Elite Combat Academy at 4:47 on that Tuesday afternoon. The place was everything she had expected. Mirrored walls, heavy bags hanging in rows, a competition ring in the center, the smell of sweat and leather and something chemical underneath, the spray they use on the mats to pretend the mats are clean. 14 students were mid-drill, every one of them white. Trent Marlowe stood in the center of the ring, shirtless, wrapping his hands. He caught her in the mirror before he turned around. A black woman, 62, gray bun, walking in like she had an appointment. He did not bother to face her. "Hey, you lost? Doors behind you." Cora stopped at the edge of the mat. She did not step onto it. Not yet. She lifted her purse strap higher on her shoulder and spoke clearly. "I am looking for the owner. My grandson trained here. Malik Whitfield." Now Trent turned, slow, and looked her up and down the way a man inspects something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. "Malik," he said, like the name tasted bad. "Yeah, tall kid. Could not throw a jab to save his life. He paid you $300 for the month. You put him out with 2 weeks left. I would like to know why." Trent tilted his head, and a grin spread across his face. Not a kind one. "Why? Because I run a gym, not a daycare. And I do not owe you, or him, or anybody an explanation." He took a step closer, especially not a woman who wanders in off the parking lot like she owns the place. 2 students by the heavy bags stopped hitting. They watched. Cora did not move, did not blink. "Give me one reason," she said. "One real reason you put that boy out." Trent stared at her a long moment. Then he turned to his students and pitched his voice so every corner of the room could hear it. "Somebody go get Grandma here a chair before she embarrasses herself." The laughter came fast and loud. Cora Whitfield did not move 1 inch. And Trent Marlowe was just getting started. The truth is, he had been waiting for a moment like this. Not consciously, not the way a man plans a vacation. But somewhere in the part of his brain that had learned to live on clicks and shares and the spike of a good algorithm day, that part knew exactly what it was looking at. A 62-year-old woman standing in the middle of his gym, refusing to leave, demanding an answer. That was not a problem. That was content. That was pure gold. He snapped his fingers at a kid by the door. "Kyle, get my phone." And the ring light. Kyle hesitated. "Coach, you sure did?" I stutter. "Phone, ring light, now." Inside 30 seconds, a phone sat mounted on a tripod, a red dot blinking in the corner of the screen. Trent set himself between Cora and the lens, careful to keep her face in frame. "All right, everybody," he clapped twice. "Gather up. We have got ourselves a special guest. Grandma here wants to know why I put her grandson out of my gym." The students formed a loose half-circle behind him. Some crossed their arms, some grinned. One near the back lifted his own phone. Trent turned back to Cora, and his voice changed, louder now, performed, pitched straight at the camera. "You want to know why? Fine. Because your grandson had no business in here. He was slow. He was sloppy. He flinched every time somebody raised a hand near him. could not keep up with my beginners. He leaned in close enough that she could smell the protein shake on his breath. Honestly, I did him a favor. Some people just are not built for this. It is in the wiring. You understand me? Some folks have got it. Your family does not. A ripple of laughter moved through the room. Cora's voice came out steady, low, almost gentle. His teacher at school said he had a natural gift. He drilled in our backyard every single night, rain or shine. Every night. Trent repeated it slowly, nodding, performing his disbelief for the lens. That is adorable. Truly. But this is not a backyard, sweetheart. This is a professional facility. Professional means standards. He pointed up at the banner over the ring. Marlowe Elite Combat Academy. Established 2018. Elite. You see that word? It means not everybody gets to walk through my door. He paid the same fee as every boy in this room, she said. And you kept it. Trent's jaw flexed. He did not like being corrected. Not in his gym, not in front of his students, and least of all by a woman he had already decided was beneath him. He stepped in, close enough to crowd her, close enough to make her feel small. Let me make this simple. Your grandson does not have what it takes. You do not have what it takes. And if you are not out that door in the next 30 seconds, I will have somebody carry you out. Are we clear? Cora looked up at him. She was a full head shorter. She did not step back, no. One word. Quiet as a church bell across an empty field. Trent blinked. Then he laughed, a sharp, forced bark that bounced off the mirrors. No? Did this woman just tell me no? He spun to his students, arms wide. You all hear that? Grandma told me no. He pressed a hand to his chest in mock terror. Lord, I am shaking. The laughter came louder. Phones were up all over the room now. 4, 5, 6 of them. And then something shifted in Trent's face. The performance fell away. The grin thinned into something harder, and what was underneath it was real. A cold, humiliated fury that had nothing to do with the camera, because Cora Whitfield was not scared. She was not crying. She was not begging. She was standing on his mat and looking at him the way you look at a child in the middle of a tantrum. Like he was small. Like he was nothing. And every one of his students was watching. That was the one thing Trent Marlowe could never survive. Not a bad month. Not a losing record, not a rough headline. The thing that could end him was being made to feel small by someone he had already decided did not matter. He walked into his office and came back with a thick fold of hundreds, from the safe $10,000, his whole cash reserve. The money set aside for next month's lease. He crossed to her, slow, deliberate. The gym went quiet. You know what, he said, voice dropping. I have got an idea. $10,000, right here. He held the stack inches from her face. All you have to do is hit me. One clean shot, anywhere. One shot, old woman. Cora said nothing. What? You cannot even do that. He laughed, but there was nothing left in it that was funny. Your grandson could not do it either. Guess it runs in the family. He waited for her to flinch, to cry, to turn and shuffle out so he could post the clip with something cruel written under it. Instead, Cora Whitfield looked him dead in the eye. You sure about that, baby? 4 words. No tremor, no hesitation. Trent's face went dark red. He swung the stack of bills across her cheek hard. The money exploded off her face and scattered across the mat. Hit me, he screamed. Pick it up and hit me. Cora did not pick up the money. She did not touch her cheek. She set her purse down on the floor, slow and careful, the way a person sets down a hymnal before they rise to sing. Her left foot slid back. Her right foot anchored forward. Her hands came up, open loose, fingers barely curved, her weight settling low, her chin tucking down. Nobody in that gym understood what they were looking at. Nobody except one man. Marcus Webb had been leaning in the office doorway, arms folded, watching in silence. 30 years in martial arts. He had studied every style there was, and that stance, he knew it. He had seen it in grainy competition footage from the 80s. In a magazine photograph he had never been able to forget. The shadow. He came off the doorway at a dead sprint. Stop, Trent, stop. You do not know who that is. His voice cracked off the walls. Every student heard it. Trent heard it too. He did not care, but for Cora, something strange happened in the half-second between Marcus shouting and Trent stepping in. Time did not slow the way people say it does in the movies. It compressed. 34 years folded into a single breath. She saw Samuel's face, not dying, smiling, standing in the doorway of their first apartment in 1988, waving the magazine in the air, laughing. That is my girl. That is my shadow. She saw Malik that afternoon. Concrete, hollow, a boy who had walked into a room full of dreams and walked out carrying something he would carry a long time. She saw her old teacher's hands adjusting her stance when she was 14, heard his voice like it was yesterday. You do not fight with anger, Cora. You fight with memory. Your body already knows. Trust it. She had not trusted it in 34 years. Her knee ached. Her knuckles were stiff. Her shoulders carried 62 years of gravity. But her feet remembered everything. Left foot back, right foot forward, weight low, hands open, breath steady. She was not the shadow anymore. She was a grandmother who had come here for one reason. But if this man put his hands on her, God help him. Trent charged. He came in fast, a right cross with everything behind it, the kind of punch built to end a conversation. He expected it to land. It did not. Cora shifted her weight half an inch to the left no more, and the fist passed her ear so close she felt the wind of it. His own momentum carried him forward, off balance for a fraction of a second. A fraction was all she had ever needed. Her left hand caught his wrist. Not a grab, a guide. She turned his arm down and around in a tight circle while her right palm pressed the back of his elbow. A basic Shotokan redirect, textbook, clean. Trent stumbled 3 steps and caught himself on the ropes. The gym went dead quiet. Not the quiet after a joke nobody laughed at. The quiet after a car accident, where everyone stops breathing at once because their minds have not caught up with what their eyes just did. Trent turned around, his face somewhere between confusion and rage, the face of a man who trips in public and needs to believe he was pushed. Lucky, he said. He rolled his neck, bounced on his toes. That was luck, old woman. Cora had not moved from her stance. He came again, faster, a jab into a low roundhouse kick aimed at her thigh, the combination that drops amateurs. She did not block the jab. She slipped it, her chin tilting back just enough to let it pass. Then she did the thing that made Marcus Webb grab the doorframe with both hands. She stepped into the kick instead of away from it, her front foot closing the distance at an angle before the kick could gather its power, so it caught her hip instead of her thigh. Half the force. In the same motion, her right palm drove forward into his solar plexus. The sound was not a slap and not a thud. It was a deep, compressed pop, like a sandbag dropped from a height. Trent's lungs emptied. His eyes went wide. His mouth opened, and nothing came out. Before he could recover, her left hand gripped his shoulder, her hip turned in, and with a motion so smooth it looked rehearsed, she lifted him off his feet and set him flat on his back on the mat. A hip throw. The water bottles rattled on the counter 20 feet away. For 3 full seconds, nobody made a sound. Then a student near the bags whispered, "Oh my God," and the room came apart. Kids scrambled back. 2 of them dropped their phones. Marcus Webb stood frozen in the doorway, with both hands on his head and tears standing in his eyes, because he knew exactly what he had watched. He had seen it 100 times in old compilations, the signature, slip, redirect, palm strike, throw. 4 moves in under 2 seconds. Trent rolled to one knee, face purple. "You," he said, pointing, his hand shaking. "You think this means something?" He charged. No technique this time. Pure rage, head down, arms wide, a man trying to tackle a tree. Cora stepped once to the right, and as he blew past, she brought a single ridge hand to the side of his neck. His legs buckled. He dropped to both knees, then forward onto his palms, and he stayed there on all 4s, gasping, unable to stand. Cora stepped back 2 paces. She lowered her hands, and then she bowed. Not to the crowd, not to the camera. She bowed toward her opponent the way her teacher had shown her 48 years before, spine straight, eyes forward. The bow that says, "This is finished." The whole gym held its breath. Then it came apart a second time, louder. Somebody started clapping, slow, then fast. A girl on a bench, no more than 19, yelled, "Who is she?" And Marcus Webb answered, not loud, almost to himself, but a phone was close enough to catch it. "That is the shadow. That is Cora Whitfield. The greatest karateka this state ever produced." That clip, Marcus's whisper, his face pale, his eyes wet, would become the most replayed 3 seconds of the whole thing. Within half an hour, 6 angles from 6 phones were online. But almost every one of them started, in the same place, the instant Cora slid her left foot back. Because that was the instant the students stopped laughing and started filming. The clips caught the slip, the redirect, the throw. They did not catch the taunting, the insults about her grandson, the money slammed across her face. All of that had happened before anyone thought to record. So what spread that night was thrilling and completely without context. An old woman putting a gym owner flat on his back, and not one person watching could say for certain who had started it. Grandma's stance was on a Barrow Springs community page by midnight. "Who is she?" the comments asked. By morning, the clips had millions of views and no answer. Somebody who knew the stance posted a side-by-side, Cora Whitfield at the 1989 Pan American Games and Cora Whitfield in a strip mall gym 34 years later. Same stance, same speed, same terrible calm. "Legends do not retire," the caption read. "They reload." It was the last kind thing the internet would say about her for a while. Cora saw none of it. She picked up her purse, walked out without another word, drove home, and made Malik his dinner. She did not tell him what had happened. He found out the way the rest of the world did. The next morning, on his phone, staring at a video of his grandmother, doing something he never knew she could do. He watched it 4 times. Then he came into the kitchen and sat down across from her and just looked at her. Really looked. Like he was seeing her for the first time. But the video was not the only thing waiting for Cora that morning. At 14 minutes past 9, a process server knocked on her door and put a blue envelope in her hand. Trent Marlowe was suing her for $250,000. The blue envelope held 14 pages. Cora had to read 3 times before she believed them. Assault, battery, intentional infliction of emotional distress, loss of income, damage to professional reputation, $250,000 in damages. The plaintiff, Trent Marlowe. The defendant, Cora Whitfield. Their story: a trained fighter had ambushed an unsuspecting instructor during a community visit. Inside 48 hours, Trent turned himself from aggressor into victim, with the precision of a man who understood content far better than he understood combat. He went on a Charlotte news station in a foam neck brace and an arm sling. His voice cracked in all the right places. His eyes watered on cue. "I just wanted to build people up," he told the anchor. "I run a fitness community. This woman walked into my gym and attacked me. I never saw it coming." The station ran his edited clip. 45 seconds that began the exact instant Cora's palm touched his chest. The same place the viral clips began, except his version handed the internet the beginning it had been missing. It opened with Cora walking in, then cut straight to the strike. Everything in between, the taunts, the insults aimed at her grandson, the $10,000 slammed across her face, had been surgically removed. And because the clips already racing across the internet also started at the fight, his lie slid perfectly into the gap. An old woman walks into a gym. A young instructor tries to talk to her. Then, out of nowhere, violence. It answered the one question the whole internet had been asking: who started it? The headline that night read, "Elderly woman attacks local fitness instructor in unprovoked assault." The same comment sections that had cheered the mystery grandmother a day earlier turned on her overnight. She should be in jail. He could have died. This is what happens when people take the law into their own hands. The only recording that told the truth from the very first second, the one shot on Trent's own phone on the tripod above it all, was still locked in his pocket, and he had no intention of ever letting the world see it. Cora's church took 11 ugly phone calls in 2 days. Somebody spray-painted a word across the community center wall. A parent at Malik's school filed a complaint asking the administration to keep an eye on the boy, because his grandmother was clearly dangerous. Malik came home that afternoon and said nothing and shut his door. The boy who had looked at her with such wonder 2 mornings before now could not look at her at all, not because he was ashamed of her, because he could not stand what the world was doing to her, and Trent Marlowe was thriving. His subscriber count went from 400,000 to over 1 million in 6 days. A supplement company that had ghosted him came back with a bigger offer. 2 injury lawyers called to volunteer. A fundraiser titled Justice for Trent pulled in tens of thousands in a week. He posted a new video from a wheelchair he did not need, dabbing his eyes with a tissue, and said, "I built that gym from nothing, and one woman took it all in 10 seconds. Then he paused and let it sit. "If you are over 60 and you feel like swinging on somebody," he said, "try it somewhere other than my gym." 20 million views. He pinned the cruelest comment himself. Cora could not afford a lawyer. She had $4,000 in savings and a fixed income that barely covered groceries. The legal aid office had a 6-week waiting list. She sat at the kitchen table with the paper spread out and a calculator that kept giving her the same impossible number. Then her phone rang. A voice she knew from Sunday service. "Cora, it is Vivian Rhodes. I sit 3 pews behind you every week. I have watched that video 40 times. I am taking your case. No charge, not a penny." Vivian Rhodes was not a big firm lawyer. She ran a 2-person practice out of a converted dentist's office on 4th Street. But she had 22 years in a courtroom, a spine made of rebar, and the one thing Trent's expensive team did not have: the truth. Discovery began. Trent's attorney filed to demand Cora's full medical history, her old training records, her competition history. Their argument that Cora Whitfield was no helpless grandmother, but a trained weapon who had planned the whole thing. The judge allowed it. Vivian filed her own motion for every original unedited video file from Trent's phone and his students' phones. Trent's attorney objected. The judge noted the objection and did not rule yet. The full footage, the part that showed everything Trent did before Cora ever raised a hand, was now the center of the case. Then something turned. Pastor Ezra Boyd, who had watched the whole town pile onto Cora, made a quiet announcement one Sunday. He asked anyone who had ever been mistreated at Marlow Elite Combat Academy to come and speak to him. 4 people did. 3 of them were former students, all black, put out under the same kind of circumstances as Malik. The 4th was a white former student who had quit in disgust over the way Trent spoke about his black students in training. Each one signed a statement. Each one was willing to testify. Vivian Rhodes now had witnesses, a pattern, and a legal theory that could flip the whole case. She still did not have the one thing that would end it: the unedited video. Yolanda Whitfield came home on a Thursday night. She had driven 11 hours straight off a route in Virginia. She dropped her keys on the counter and found her mother sitting at the kitchen table in the dark. "I am thinking about settling," Cora said. "Settling for what, Mama? You did not do anything wrong. I know. But this is not just about me anymore. They are going after Malik at his school. They painted the church. I stood up, Yolanda. I stood up and the whole world knocked me back down." Yolanda sat down and took both her mother's hands. "Mama, you did not just stand up. You stood up for Malik. For every kid that man ever put out that door feeling worthless. If you settle, he wins, and he does it again to the next one." Cora looked at the papers. She looked toward the cedar chest at the end of the hall. She looked at her daughter's face, tired, road-worn, fierce. "Call Vivian," she said. "Tell her we are not settling." The hearing was set for a Tuesday morning. Trent's team had 3 attorneys, a media consultant, and a medical expert. Vivian Rhodes had a legal pad, a cardboard box of signed statements, and one unanswered question. Where was the original video off Trent's phone? The night before the hearing, at 11:43, her phone buzzed. A text from a number she did not know. No name. No greeting. One line. "Check your email. God bless." Tuesday morning. Courtroom 4B, Calden County Courthouse. Cora Whitfield sat at the defendant's table in the only blazer she owned. Navy blue, bought for Samuel's funeral 23 years earlier. Vivian sat beside her with a laptop and a single cardboard box. Across the aisle, Trent's team took up half the room. 3 attorneys in matching charcoal suits. The consultant typing on a tablet, the medical expert flipping through notes. Trent came in last, neck brace, arm sling, a limp that had not existed 2 weeks before. He lowered himself into his chair like a man in terrible pain and winced as he adjusted the sling. 2 women in the gallery pressed their hands to their mouths. His lead attorney, a polished man named Grant Halloway, opened with a 15-minute presentation. Photographs of bruised ribs, a doctor's letter citing strain and soft tissue damage. A timeline of Cora entering the gym, quote, "uninvited and hostile." "This woman," Halloway said, pointing without looking at her, "is not a helpless grandmother. She is a former national champion, a third-degree black belt. She walked into my client's place of business and carried out a premeditated, calculated assault. Trent took the stand. His voice trembled, his hands shook, or seemed to. He described Cora as aggressive from the second she came in. He said he had tried to calm things down. He said the money was a light-hearted gesture, and then she hit me. He said, voice breaking. No warning, no reason. Vivian Rhodes stood. She buttoned her jacket slowly and let 5 full seconds of silence sit in the room before she spoke. Mr. Marlowe, you said you tried to de-escalate. Is that right? Yes, ma'am, and the money. A light-hearted gesture. Yes. Vivian opened her laptop. Your Honor, I would like to enter 37 clips from the plaintiff's own public channel, spanning 3 years. Holloway objected. The judge overruled. One by one she played 3-second pieces. Trent blocking a teenager's path. Trent shoving a man's chest. Trent slapping a woman's hand away. Trent backing an older man against a car. In every clip, Trent Marlowe put his hands on someone first. 37 times, Vivian said quietly. 37 people, and you call yourself the victim. Then she called her first witness. Marcus Webb walked in like a man carrying a confession he had held too long. He swore to tell the truth and gripped the arms of the chair. Mr. Webb, you are the plaintiff's trainer. On the day in question, who made physical contact first? Marcus looked at Trent. Trent looked back. Marcus's voice was steady. Trent did. He threw money in her face. He shoved her. He swung first. I screamed at him to stop because I recognized her stance. She is a black belt. I told him not to touch her. He did not listen, the gallery murmured. Holloway's pen stopped moving. Vivian turned to the judge. Your Honor, one final exhibit. Last night at 11:43, my office received an anonymous submission. The original, unedited video from the plaintiff's own phone. Our forensic examiner has verified the file was created at 4:51 on the day of the incident and has never been altered. She pressed play. The unedited footage showed all of it. Trent calling her out the moment she walked in. Trent mocking her grandson. Trent circling her. Trent throwing the money across her face, and then, only then, Cora settling into her stance. Vivian paused it. Counselor, she said to Holloway, your client entered an edited version of this same video as his Exhibit 1. The original was on his phone. You had it during discovery. You chose not to produce it. Holloway opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His face went the color of old concrete. The judge took off his glasses. Mr. Holloway, withholding this evidence is a sanctionable act. I am referring this matter to the State Bar. The plaintiff's claims are dismissed with prejudice. This case is over. The gavel came down once, and the sound cracked through the room. Trent Marlowe sat frozen. The neck brace looked ridiculous now. The sling hung limp and theatrical. For the first time since it started, he had nothing to say. Cora stood. She did not smile. She did not cry. She turned to Trent and spoke so quietly that only the first 2 rows could hear. I did not come to your gym to beat you, she said. I came so my grandson never has to be afraid of a man like you. And so no child in that neighborhood ever walks through your door and walks out believing he is worth nothing. Trent did not look up. Cora picked up her purse, took Vivian's hand, and walked out. Yolanda and Malik were waiting in the hall. Malik did not say a word. He just wrapped his arms around her and held on like he was afraid she might disappear. Outside, a reporter stepped forward, camera rolling. Mrs. Whitfield, the case was dismissed. The plaintiff's attorney is facing sanctions, and the full video proves you acted in self-defense. What do you want people to take from this? Cora looked at the camera. Then she looked back at Malik, standing tall behind her. I want people to know that standing up does not mean you will not get knocked down, she said. It means you get back up anyway, and you bring your people with you when you do. The reporter asked one more. There are thousands of people online right now asking the same thing. Will you teach? Cora looked at her grandson, 18. Standing straight, the same boy who had left that gym with his head down and his bag still zipped. She looked at Yolanda, who had driven all night to stand beside her. She looked at Vivian Rhodes, who had fought with nothing but the truth in a cardboard box. She looked at Pastor Boyd at the bottom of the steps, with 4 former students who had driven in from 3 different cities. Then Cora Whitfield did something she had not done in 23 years. She smiled. Yeah, she said. I believe I will. That clip, Cora smiling on the courthouse steps, saying 3 quiet words, was watched 6 million times by nightfall. Grandma's stance was not just trending anymore. It was turning into something bigger. The fall came fast for Trent Marlowe, and it was total. His channel was demonetized inside 72 hours of the courtroom footage going public, cited for harassment and deceptive conduct. The supplement company pulled its deal the same day. His gym lost its lease the following week. The landlord did not even call, just mailed a letter. The 3 former students filed their own suits for discrimination, with the 4th as their witness. The fundraiser was shut down and refunded. Grant Holloway was suspended pending the state bar's review. Trent Marlowe went from local celebrity to cautionary tale in under a month. Vivian was not finished either. She went back to court for what the ordeal had cost. Malik's $300, the ruined weeks, the harassment, and the settlement that came with the discrimination suits returned every dollar Trent had thrown across that mat and a good deal more. Cora did not keep a cent of it for herself. She put all of it into what came next, and Cora Whitfield kept her word. The first Saturday after the hearing, she walked into the Barrow Springs Community Center at 8 in the morning with a rolled-up mat under one arm and a bag of hand wraps under the other. Pastor Boyd had cleared the main hall. Yolanda had printed flyers. Malik had set up folding chairs along the walls. They expected maybe 10 people. 31 showed up. Women in their 60s and 70s who had never thrown a punch. Teenage girls who walked home alone every afternoon. A retired postal worker who said she had been afraid of her own shadow for 40 years. A mother of 3 who said she had watched the courthouse video 11 times and cried every time. Cora did not give a speech. She stood in front of the room and said 6 words. Left foot back. Hands open. Breathe. And 31 women shifted their weight for the first time in their lives. Malik became her assistant, not because she asked. Because he came early, unrolled the mats, and warmed up before anyone else arrived. He had watched his grandmother take a lifetime of silence and turn it into something that shook a courtroom. And he wanted to be part of whatever came next. Yolanda switched to a local route, shorter miles, less pay, home every night. For the first time in years, the Whitfield house had all 3 of them at the dinner table. 2 weeks later, the Caldwell County Commission passed a resolution, the first of its kind in the county. It required every private fitness and martial arts facility to adopt a written anti-discrimination policy as a condition of its business license, with suspension for violations. They called it the Whitfield Standard. The same station that had first aired Trent's edited clip and called Cora an attacker ran the story, and this time the segment opened with the unedited video and closed with footage of Cora teaching a 70-year-old woman how to stand. Then came a letter, hand-delivered by a man in a dark suit who had driven 3 hours to bring it. Inside, on heavy cream paper with a gold seal, the United Karate Association of America was awarding Cora Whitfield an honorary 5th-degree black belt, the highest honor it had ever given a retired competitor. For lifetime contribution to the spirit, discipline, and dignity of the art, the citation read, "For proving that true mastery is not measured in trophies, but in the courage to stand when the world tells you to sit." She asked for the ceremony to be held at the community center. The same cracked floor, the same bad air conditioning. Malik tied the new belt around her waist. His hands were steady, his eyes were not. The room, packed with students and neighbors and church members, with Yolanda in the front row, stood and clapped for 4 unbroken minutes. Cora did not make a speech. She looked at the belt, she looked at the room, she looked at the old cedar chest they had carried in and set in the corner, open now and empty, its purpose finally done. Then she turned to her class and said, "All right, left foot back. Let us begin." 6 months later, on a Saturday morning in December, 43 women stood in 2 rows inside the Barrow Springs Community Center. White uniforms, bare feet, wrapped hands, some of them trembling, most of them smiling. It was the first graduation of a Whitfield's free self-defense class, the class that had started with 31 strangers and a rolled-up mat. Cora walked the line. She stopped at each woman, fixed a stance here, straightened a collar there, said something only that person could hear, At the end of the row stood a woman of 71 named Pearl, with arthritic hands and a voice like warm gravel. 6 months earlier, Pearl had told Cora she had never raised a fist to anything in her life, not even a pillow. Now she stood with her chin tucked and her weight low, breathing the way she had been taught. Cora tied a white belt around Pearl's waist. Pearl's lip trembled. Cora held her hands a moment and said, "You showed up every Saturday, rain or shine. That belt is not a reward. It is proof you were never as weak as they told you." The room broke into applause. Malik clapped harder than anyone. Beside him, Yolanda wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Behind them, Pastor Boyd held his Bible to his chest and nodded slowly, the way a man does when he watches something he prayed for come true. On the wall behind Cora, next to the Whitfield standard framed in glass, hung a black belt. Not the new one, the old one. The one that had waited in a cedar chest for 23 years in the dark for a reason to come back out. The thing had grown far past Barrow Springs. A dozen free classes had opened across the state, each one modeled on hers, each one open to anyone who had ever been told they did not belong. Left foot back had become a kind of rallying cry. People printed it on shirts. A muralist in Charlotte painted Cora's stance on the side of a building, 10 feet tall, arms open, eyes forward, and under it 2 words: "Stand up." Here is the part that stays with me. Strength does not expire. It does not care how old you are, or how long it has been folded in the dark. The things you build inside yourself, the discipline, the patience, the fire, they do not disappear, they wait. And when the moment finally comes, they are right there, like they never left. And here is the part the world will not tell you. When you stand up for someone, they will try to flip the story. They will cut the video short and pass the short version around until no one remembers what actually happened. But the truth does not change just because a person hides half of it. Sooner or later, the whole thing comes out all the way. So the question was never whether Cora Whitfield deserved her dignity. She always did. The question is the one she left on those courthouse steps. When someone you love gets knocked down, will you stand up before the whole story comes out, or only after? This story is a work of fiction. Every event, character, conversation, company, institution, and situation in this narrative is entirely imaginary, created for storytelling and to explore dignity, fairness, courage, and the human cost of prejudice. Nothing here represents actual events or should be read as fact. If this story moved you, subscribe, share it with one person who has ever been counted out before anyone bothered to really see them, and tell me in the comments. Have you ever stood up for someone you love when the whole world told you to sit down?